So guys, the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 has just been announced, and in this video we're going to talk about everything you need to know about the smartphone. Let's get started. So let's kick things off by talking about that camera. The Samsung Galaxy Note 8 now comes with a dual 12 megapixel camera, but what it allows you to do here is a little bit less than traditional. So we've actually got one wide angle lens, one telephoto lens, and both of these have optical image stabilization, which means the end result footage you're going to get is going to be incredibly steady. Not only that, but this setup actually gives rise to another rather useful feature, known as dual capture. So because one of these lenses is a telephoto lens, combining that with a wide angle lens means that actually when you turn this mode on, you can take a photo and two will be captured at the same time. One slightly zoomed in and one with a wide angle shot, so you get more of the environment in. Also, we've got 2 times lossless zoom, and another thing the company mentioned when talking about the camera was that there is a live preview. So when you are using the bokeh mode, which is sort of using both of these lenses to create sort of almost an artificially high level of bokeh, you actually get a live preview of what it will look like, which you don't get on a lot of smartphones using this tech. In terms of the front camera, nothing's really changed since the S8 and the S8 Plus, which is not a bad thing considering those are some of the best front cameras with a really wide aperture, so they get in lots of light. Now probably the first concern that's going to come to a lot of people's mind when they read 6.3-inch display is how big is the phone? And to be honest, it's a chunky smartphone. At 8.6mm thick and weighing 195 grams, it is far chunkier and heavier than most flagships this year. For the sake of comparison, the Galaxy S8 is 8mm thick. In terms of color options, there's nothing too out of the ordinary, except I do really like that deep sea blue color. Apart from that, there's just a black, a silver, or they call it orchard grey here, and maple gold. Now, no new Note phone is going to be complete without a shiny new S Pen, and we do have one here, which we'll get onto in just a moment. But what's also impressive is that whilst integrating the S Pen into the body, they've still managed to retain an IP68 waterproof rating, which means you can submerge the phone at a depth of about 1.5 meters for 30 minutes at a time. The display slides in at 6.3 inches, which is literally a fraction larger than the 6.2 seen on the Galaxy S8 Plus. And I think for most people that's going to be a huge sigh of relief, because anything much larger than that, you won't even be able to hold it in one hand. As it stands, this is a phone that is still pocketable. It's still completely usable, but you do have to bear in mind that it is almost exclusively a two-handed device. Now, some people were expecting a 4K display on this device, but actually the resolution hasn't changed since the S8, so that makes it a 2960 by 1440 resolution, and almost a perfect example of how hard it is to tell the difference in resolutions when you get to these kind of number of pixels is the fact that the phone by default will ship with a full HD Plus setting. So that can obviously be changed if you go into the settings, but because the average consumer isn't going to notice, they would probably prefer the extra battery and performance. Now, as you probably expect, considering the Note 8 is an evolution of the S8 rather than a revolution, it has more or less the same aesthetics to it. So it's got the same curves which make it comfortable to hold in the hand. It's got the same Gorilla Glass front and back which make it very, very sturdy, and it also has the same design language. So it looks the same, and you could definitely tell side by side that they're from the same company. Now, one potential sticking point here is that a lot of people were expecting perhaps either a screen embedded fingerprint scanner or just a better way to unlock the device, because with the Galaxy S8, the fingerprint scanner is not exactly placed very well. It is tough to feel for, and combined with the rather temperamental face and iris detections, you end up more or less all the time just using a pattern. So the Note 8 actually uses the exact same system here, so maybe in next year's Samsung phones this is going to be redone. Now, for me personally, one of the most interesting things on the entire specification sheet was the battery. The Galaxy Note 8 actually ships with 3,300 mAh of it, which you might notice is less than the Galaxy S8 Plus. The S8 Plus comes with 3,500 mAh, and all of a sudden this move almost marks a bit of a shift. The Note line was traditionally known for larger displays, S Pen, more power, but also battery life. And it's a bit of a shame to see, but that battery life trend seems to be disappearing. It's almost slightly confusing that given the smaller battery, it's still a much thicker phone. In terms of the processor, we've got exactly the same setup as the Galaxy S8 and the Galaxy S8 Plus, which is to say you're more or less covered for everything you want to do on the smartphone. Having said that, for those of you expecting a power bump like a new processor or even a small overclock, which we have seen in past Note devices, you might be a little bit disappointed because this is exactly the same setup, exactly the same clock speeds. The one big change here though is the shift from 4GB of RAM to 6GB, and it makes a lot of sense. Not only is that bringing Samsung on par with its competitors like Xiaomi with the Mi 6, like OnePlus with the OnePlus 5, but also the Note phones are completely geared towards multitasking, and multitasking is exactly where that RAM comes in handy. And whilst 4GB on the S8 and the S8 Plus for almost anything you want to do felt like enough, there were times in extreme cases when you're flicking between a lot of different things that you start to feel limitations. So it's nice to know that we've got some extra headroom here to work with in the future. So as we see with every Note phone, the S Pen has been redesigned. As well as integrating that waterproof feature, it's now got a finer tip, is more pressure sensitive, and has even more features. Now probably my favourite one is the ability to simply, when the phone is off, take the S Pen out and start scribbling on the screen. And in this process, you can record up to 100 pages and just stick them onto the wall of your always-on display. The new software also lets you record the drawings you make as GIF files and send them on social medias that support it. I mean, the company marketed it as a more emotionally oriented way of sending an equivalent of an emoji. To me, it doesn't really seem like something I'm going to use personally. What I did find very cool though was the ability to take the pen out and hover over a bit of text that is in another language and translate it to one of 71 other different languages instantaneously. And this doesn't just translate words at a time, but entire sentences, and it takes into account the context of the pages you're on. As of now, the phone is running Android 7.1.1, and it will be getting an update to 8.0 Oreo pretty soon, but unfortunately not as fast as Google's own devices. But that is to be expected. Aside from that, the other things worth bearing in mind are that it charges by USB Type-C, which is a huge relief, supports all of Samsung's latest and greatest fast charging technologies, as well as fast wireless charging, but at the same time, yes, these features haven't been upgraded since the Galaxy S8. It also has a headphone jack, supports LTE Cat 16 modems, and also supports Bluetooth 5.0, which means you can connect to two different separate Bluetooth headphones and play music at the same time. Now, you might be glad to know that pre-order is actually open today, and in fact, by the time this video is up, you might actually be able to snag yourself one of the devices. The phone is officially launching in some countries on the 15th of September, a little bit later in some of the other ones, depends on your region. For the UK, for the base model of the smartphone, it's going to start at £869. Quite an expensive piece of kit. That'll get you the 64GB model. There is also a 128 and a 256, and all of them have microSD card support. So guys, that is everything you need to know right now about the Galaxy Note 8. Be sure to turn on notifications after you subscribe to the channel, and I will definitely keep you updated. There's a lot of pretty cool videos coming very soon. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'm signing off.